Oh, sorry. I just scared my cat. Welcome back to another video on the channel where I dive into the behind the scenes of how I made Inside the Castle by Kid Lightbulbs. So if you haven't heard the original, I'll play it in a sec, but just a warning that this song is very visceral and kind of creepy. So if that's not your kind of vibe, you might want to skip ahead just a little bit, or you might want to surprise yourself and come back to the original after hearing the remix. So yeah, it's a very creepy, lots of screams going on kind of song. So what really drew me to it was all the sort of really visceral sounds and sort of the big soundscape that Kid Lightbulbs has put into it. So I was really just like hoping to pick out like a whole bunch of individual parts from that and then rework that into the remix. So I'm gonna steal this and we're gonna do a transition into our door over here in Ableton. So as you can see, straight into it, the top line is the original file. And so what I've done with that file is I've gone through and grabbed heaps of little mini sections. So if I go to the lead, for example, oh, there we go, no, that bit. You can see the samples here, and I've just grabbed a tiny section of it to use within the song. Same with the lead too. All that sort of MIDI work is from that. Also, some of the kit, for the drum kit, I've grabbed like this bit here, sections of the songs, and I've grabbed that, hold on, my phone is in the way, and chopped it up here. So if you're not familiar with the workflow of Ableton, this is sort of where you can transpose and alter the sample itself without having to put it into like a MIDI program, so to speak. And so this bit here that I've changed up is every 18th, it's only going to be playing half of it. So yeah, every 16th essentially is a bit of a snippet of the sample and then emptiness. And it sort of created this cool little like bouncy section that's sort of underneath the full drum kit. But for the most part of this, other than a couple things, this is all taken from the original file. I think the only thing that I haven't done is the bass, this secondary bass thing that I've done, and a little bit of the drum kit. So all the leads, a lot of the instrumentation, rises, all that sort of stuff is from the original track, which we'll go into now. So we'll start off with the intro to the song. So if you haven't heard the original, I'll quickly explain it. So the intro, this section here, is pretty much the exact same as what I've done, because I wanted the idea of like, if you played one and randomized it in a playlist with the other, you wouldn't know which one. So what I did here is I've transposed it while recording and then bounce that back out into its own separate thing. So it rises up into a different octave almost to make the track. So we'll just play that. So I've just got a little bit of a laugh at the start to change it up just a little bit, but then this is pretty much exactly the same as the original. I wish I could show you, but because I've rebounced it, you can't see the transposing in action, but you can hear it now where that's going up. Whereas if we jump to the original, so yeah, that's similar. And then it sort of already had a little bit of that going on, but it's still sort of staying relatively within the same area. So I like that idea of like, we're building more tension before the song even starts. And then that's underscored with this as a little bass line as well, just to give it some creepy depth and kind of tech sounding that I thought was kind of cool. And then that just slowly evolves over time to go with the build of the intro that I've done. And then we go into the remix itself there to to sort of go into the danciness. So yeah, this first lead here, literally this little section of the sample, oh, like it's just playing that tiny part. Like we could probably even find that in the original sample if we're sneaky about it. So that's even from the same part. I think it's that bit there that I've sampled and based on where that is on the waveform. That might even be the altered one. No, I think I've just played that as an occupier. But yeah, just chords for that and just really like chopped it up. Like the only change to that is every so often I do this section here. So when I was playing around with the melody of it, I really wanted to grab just like a bit of freeform section because I'm very like to the grid with the rest of this. But then this bit here, I thought it would sort of suit with the themes of the original to go off grid and just like me playing around with stuff, adding in a couple extra notes here, but then really extending out the sample to, and then if we play it through, you can see I've looped just a tiny section at the end there, which gets to that, and then it extends out just to give it a bit of a variation instead of holding that note for too long. But then yeah, we go back to the original groove of it, and then that comes back a couple of times, and then at the end it's just the long sustained. And then the second lead is another, like this is a tiny little grab that I've got here. So if we just jump here, so that's chords, but if I grab that and go, I don't even remember what the original of that sounded like. I wonder if I can find that again. Over here. Ah, yeah. So that's that noise there, just smacked into that one, and then adjusted slightly with compressors and that sort of stuff, but nothing too much to alter it. But that was just to sort of get a different feel for what was going on and just grab some more samples out of the original. And then the bass is pretty simple because I didn't want it to be too distracting from me pulling the samples from the original. So that's just that real just like squelchy stuff going on. And then there's just a lot of alterations between them. And then we've got the kick. So this is like my standard kick that I go to all the time. It's just pretty simple. And a clap. And then this is just a little shaker. So these are just sort of stuff I've brought in to give it a bit of a more standard dance sound. But if we combine that with the extra elements, so we've got this first bit here. And just the way that this sort of section sounded in the original was like, it already sort of had its own bounce to it, I felt. So, and then it just added in like a lot of cool stuff going on that I thought. And then I've also got this chopped up section here, which was just like, this tiny whistle sound that I found in the original that I've kind of, hearing it now, I'm not sure why I've got it in the drum kit. Maybe I just wanted it compressed in a little bit with the rest of it. But it's just kind of its own little thing going on underneath, which I thought was a bit fun. And then the risers for the track are all from a couple of the door sounds that you can hear in the original. So we do that one. Like I thought, those creaks and the way they sort of ended would really help, like, emphasize the rising section. So we just got that in context. Like it's real subtle, but it sort of does the work for there. And then this is another bit here, sort of similar. I think that sounds like it's from that intro section again. I've just dropped that. Oh, I haven't dropped that enough. Where have I got that from? That must just be straight from the original somewhere, or I've bounced it again like the previous one. And then we've got this one here, which is just that sort of analog sound to sort of do the little breakdown bit. So that's more of a, not a riser, but a dropper. And then this is so freeform. I'm not even, no plans at all, as you can tell. And then last one is just this little underscoring bit that I thought was really cool, and then it just plays a couple times just for this little section here, just to give it a boost. But like, that's buried in the mix. Like, unless you're looking at it right now with me, I don't think anyone would have heard that. And then one more section here. We've got this little voice laugh bit, and just that loop, other than at the end here where we kind of use that as an outro. So we jump back to here. It just gives it that creepy vibe that the original had, just like the weird laughs and stuff like that. And then this is for that extended chord towards the end. Just bringing all of that sort of together, kind of thing. And that's it. Like, typical of my style, I want to use a whole bunch of things from the original and then try to keep it minimal in terms of how the track is. Like, and then this MIDI track here is just what I do to say this is where I want the track to end, so I just highlight that and then export, and then it does it to that length, so I don't have to worry about it, the reverb's cutting out at the end or anything like that. And then if I've got an original track in there, it's not going to try and bounce that whole thing, and then I've got 2 minutes of silence at the end or whatever. But yeah, like, this was a really fun remix to do. I've always like getting tracks like this that have a whole bunch of just weird stuff in it. And like, as you can see, I didn't even get the stems from this from Kid Lightbulbs. I just went completely off the original song. I think I got this from Bandcamp when he reached out to me. I was like, oh, well, I'll download it and start grabbing stuff now. And then never ended up using any of the original stems, because I was like, I liked how all the textures, I could chop them up and then they sort of tied it back to the original without it sounding like too separate. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Okaden does a behind the scenes of a song that he's done and yaps non-stop for 13 minutes. So yeah, there is a link down below so you can go listen to the full track. I also recommend checking out Kid Lightbulb's original album, which is Ruined Castle, and then there's a remixed version of that up on Bandcamp. So every track has a remix from another artist, which is really cool, and he's slowly releasing them out on streaming. But if you want to hear the whole thing now, there is also a link for that down below for the full Bandcamp album, that you can hear the whole thing now. And considering it's, off the top of my head, 16 songs of completely different remixes from everyone, it flows insanely well. Like, I'm not trying to be biased about it at all, but somehow he's got a flow between so many tracks that is really impressive, between all these different genres. Like, going from my remix into Illy Baby's Aquarium remix is really cool. And then later on, like, it's just like a full, like, somehow we've ended up into a rock track from another artist. And it's like, I feel like for any other album, it would have been really hard to line all of these up. But he's just done it incredibly well. He's picked the artist. I keep raving about it, but I really, really like the remix album and the original, and I just want more people to go check it out because it's really cool. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed. As I said, all the links below, and I will see, I don't know, whenever I make another one of these, whenever I feel like it. All right, bye.